Alright guys, so I already went through all the pros, and which is cool because you get that from everywhere, a lot of the other reviews too. But now it's time to go to the cons, the real world cons from where we're coming from full on DSLR users to come into essentially a new system, a mirrorless system. Probably the worst thing about this camera is the battery life. It sucks pretty much. We have, because of how bad it is, I bought uh, 5 batteries. We have 5 batteries. For a DSLR, typical usage, um, about one battery can last a whole day. And a whole day for us would be, let's say, a wedding, about 8 to 12 hours, depending. If it's a long day or we happen to shoot a lot in the morning, then maybe 1.5 at most. With this guy, oh man, we were in California visiting with my nephews. We took them out to the park, and I'm just using this as a candid camera, just with some videos and some stills. And we left the park, we left the house, and it was around 70%. When we came back, about just 45 minutes, because it was a pretty warm day. It was in the 90s, and we came back about 45 minutes to an hour later, and it was already down to like 15%. And that's just standard, like normal usage. And just taking some videos here, taking some photos there, and that's with me being very conservative with all the features too, because you set the brightness down, you turn off the Wi-Fi, put on the airplane mode to conserve battery. And even though we did all that, the battery still sucks. So essentially, I give it about an hour per battery if you're going to use it casually, going around taking videos of what you're eating, stuff like that, snapshots here and there. Because you got to remember that this is full-on electronic camera now. The viewfinder is electronic, and the LCD, they're always on essentially. So it's either you turn it off, it goes into sleep mode, or it's on. But when you're focusing, doing all that, it's always on. Compared to a DSLR, where it's an optical viewfinder, where you don't have to drive the LCD screen. Think of your cell phone. The thing that eats up the most amount of the battery is your screen, and essentially you have 2 screens on this: the viewfinder and the LCD screen, and that eats up a lot of the battery life. So this is how I store it. Oops, I put this up here so it doesn't move around. But we store it in here. You see, perfect way to store it in an old glass case. When I'm done with the battery, I flip it up, and then I know that this battery is dead, and then I can still use these. So that's my little system. But essentially, yeah, these are all the batteries that we have to buy just to make it through the day if we were to go on a trip or something. And that's one of the main reasons why we bought this, because we're going on a trip and we want to capture some cool footage without bringing a big old camera. But the good thing about that is the batteries are cheap. You can go Amazon, you can buy 2-pack for about 25 bucks, something like that. Number 2, the biggest gripe, the cons, would be the LCD screen. To make it usable outdoors, you have to bump up the brightness. Good thing that there is an option to make it super bright for outdoors, and then that helps a lot. But then that goes back to the battery life, where if the brightness of the screen is super high, then it eats up your battery even more. But at the standard setting, it's very tough to see the back, just the micro contrast and everything, the back of the screen in daylight. When you're indoors, no problem, no issues. But when you're outside, because also as the sun's hitting you, there's reflection too. So there's a lot of glare and reflection on the screen, and you can tilt it to make it a little better, but it's tough to see. But not only is it tough to see, when you compare it to a Nikon LCD screen in the back and the Sony, even though I believe the Sony has the same amount of pixels, if not more, a little more. I think this has like 1,300 pixels or something on the back screen or something. But the quality of that screen is not the same as the quality of what's on the Nikon screen. I mean, I'm outside testing this side by side with the D600 and this camera, and the D600 is more contrast. The blacks are richer blacks, so the blacks are darker. There's just, it seems to have like a better, just a better screen, a better anti-glare coat or something. The screen on the back of the Sony here, there's kind of like a purple tint to it, and the quality is just not the same as what's on the Nikon DSLR. And it's funny how clearly I first noticed that when I turned it on. I'm like, okay, the screen is just not what I was used to with the Nikon. So there's that caveat, you know. Hopefully on the future models they put a better panel back there. The good thing is that when you bump up the brightness, then you know you can easily use it outdoors, but then it kills your battery even more. The fast lenses. This is a 2.8 lens, and this is the perfect size from, this is the small hood right here. Now you take this off, the lens is tiny, it's very portable, and it's exactly what we want. And that's the main reason why we got this camera. But if you wanted to go to a faster lens, like an f1.4, it goes from this size right here to about this size, this big. And at that point, it stops becoming a small compact camera, you know what I'm saying? It's almost like, you know, why would I want to carry that big old lens in a new system when I can just do the same thing? I already have a big 1.4 lens, you know, on an old system, you know. So going into this system, the main reason is to keep it small and light, but if you want fast glass, then you got to pay the price. So I feel like it's kind of schizophrenic, this system. On one hand, you know, it wants to be small and compact, and it does that well with, you know, the slower lenses. But if you want to go fast lenses and get good quality, then the lenses get huge. So I'm hoping that Sony develops, I don't know, finds some way to make these lenses smaller so that it becomes a true compact system, full frame, small lenses, just like this, and that'll make it so much better. Let's see, where am I? I'm at number 4. Now these are, the main cons are battery life, the LCD screen could be better, and Sony's not sure if they want to create a small system or a big system. Those are the main cons. Now we're getting to some of the things that I think keeps this from being pro level camera. A casual camera is one thing, but when you start getting into like a workhorse camera, that, because I mean the price point of this is, come on, it is geared towards that higher price point. It's not at the consumer level price point. Let's talk about the interface of all the buttons and everything. Number 4, the record button is in an awkward location. It's on the side of the thumb here. So when you're shooting like this, what's the general button that you'd like to use? Your finger, right? Because that's what you're used to. And it's like that on the other DSLRs. You want to record, you hit like this. You want to stop, you hit it again. And that's perfect, because by doing this, there isn't much camera shake. But when it's with this thumb here, you have to move it out, because it's such a small camera that you have to move it enough. It's not already on here. You have to move it, and when you move it, that means the camera shakes. You know, or else you have to hold it at a weird way where you're kind of like this, and you have a hand free here like this. But I mean, this is not going to give you a stable grip on your camera. There's plenty of room up here. I wish they'd put a button up here, or at the very least, with all these buttons here, they should allow you to program one of these buttons to do the record. You can program buttons, but there's limitations. It's not like you can go crazy with all the programming. No, you can only do certain things with the buttons, and one of the things you cannot do is move the record button. And I wish, because there's 2 buttons up here, I would easily and quickly have chosen one of these to be the record button. Another thing about the interface is I don't think it's the menus and the way you dig through menus. I don't think it's, oh sorry, I'm not scratching my back. Now let's talk about the interface and the menu. And another con, I feel like Sony is kind of like stuck between consumer mode and then, you know, pro style menus. You know, it's, I feel like you still have to dig through too many menus and to get to what you want to do. I wish there was, number one, a custom menu to where, you know, some of the things that I access the most, I wish I could hit a button and it goes straight into the custom menu. But as it stands right now, there isn't. I mean, if I want to change one thing, I gotta jump through all the menus, get to that thing, and then if I want to change something else, I gotta jump to another part of the menu, and then get to that. And I mean, there is a function button back here, and there's a 2 rows of things that you can put in, but you can't put everything in there. There's only certain things that you can put in there. So there's some limitations. Like what I'm used to on the Nikon is any point in the menu, I can create my personal menu, my favorite menu, and no matter if I, you know, had to dig through 5 levels to get to that point, I can assign that point to where I need it, and then I just click one button and I'm there. You know, true, all it would take is a firmware upgrade, but hey, you know, you can't bank on firmware upgrades because if it's not there now, it's not there. If it's in the future, it is, but right now it's not there. So I feel like the interface is a little clumsy. It could get a little bit easier to use. Another thing about the interface is simple things like after you take a picture, you hit the preview button, right? And then you want to, you know, toggle through all the information. Generally you hit up, you know, you go through one screen and then you hit down, you come back to the previous screen, right? So on the Sony it's a little bit different. You can hit up and it'll toggle through the different screens, like you can see the histogram, the peaking, the blinkies, we call it. You can toggle through that, but if you skipped over it quickly and you want to hit back down to go back to the previous menu, it doesn't do that. Up, 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 up. Normally I go between full screen and wanted to see the histogram and blinkies. I want to go back to full screen and hit down. No, it doesn't work. Because hitting down when you're on the preview changes the volume settings, which I don't know why that's there, and I can't program that out of there. So when I'm trying to toggle through the different preview modes or the playback screen, I have to jump, you know, I go to the first screen, and if I skipped it and I missed it, I have to go through the whole thing again to get back to the first screen. I have to keep hitting up until it comes back again. And, you know, I mean, true, it's only like 4 button presses, but it shouldn't be 4 button presses. You know, when you miss it, just hit back down. I'll go back to the previous screen. Clumsy things like that, you know, gets in the way of being like a free-flowing camera, a very intuitive camera. Another thing is, if I want to change the focus point, if you want like a pro camera, you can't rely on just face detection. You can't rely on the camera to get to the face that you want. You got to be able to control which point gets you there. So to change that, you got to press a button and then you can start dialing through. You know, whereas I'm used to just, as I'm looking through here, if I want to move it, then I just, you know, jog through the dial back here and it instantly moves it. But with the Sony, I can't do that because all the buttons in the back do other things. So I have to hit a button to change it into the focus point mode. Then it'll let me, you know, jump through the different focus points. Little things like that, you know, I mean, it keeps it from being, like if I were to ditch, if I wanted to ditch the DSLR and go into mirrorless, I wouldn't be able to do it because I'd miss that feature. You know, it'd keep me from getting that spur of the moment, those fleeting moment type shots that I can't get if I got to jump through, you know, 1 button click away or 2 button clicks away. So little things like that where it may seem trivial, but if it didn't have to do that, like if I can just instantly move the dials to change my focus points, then that'd be so much better. And talking about focus points, the focus tracking, it's good, but, and the way I like to shoot is I like to shoot in continuous focus, and I like to do a back button focus, and luckily this camera allows you to program one of the buttons to separate the autofocus from the shutter button. So this top button here, the shutter button, all it does for me is it takes the picture. When I want to focus, I program one of the back buttons. In my case, the C3 button. I program it to do the autofocus. So if I want continuous focus, I just hold the button and it continuously tracks. When I let go, it stops focusing, and that's the way I want it because that gives me fine-tuned control. But it's good that you can do that, but now the focus speed of this continuous focus is good, but not at the same level as the DSLRs that we're used to. So if I were to switch systems from a DSLR into mirrorless, then I would really miss that feature. My back itches. Hold on a second. Anyways, now, like Kay was saying, I'm getting a little long-winded, but the reason I want to talk about all these cons and be a little long-winded is that there's some people who are thinking about completely ditching DSLRs and going into a new system, and hopefully this will help some of you in whether or not the new system can accomplish what you were used to. For some of you, this will be like, oh, that's too much information, who cares? But hopefully it'll help some of you. Let's continue with the cons. I talked about the continuous focus. You know, it's fast, but not as fast. Let's go and talk about the focus peaking. The focus peaking feature is a feature where visually the camera, the LCD screen will tell you what's in focus by drawing an outline. And it's great when your depth of field is real big, but the way we like to shoot as shallow as we can. When you start to shoot shallow with focus peaking, it's not always accurate, you know, like sometimes I'll be like, okay, it says it's in focus, and I check the camera, and I check the picture, and yeah, okay, it is in focus, but other times it says it's in focus, and I check back, and it's off by a little bit. That's something that hopefully will improve, but it's not that, you know, when I first started using this, you know, I heard about the focus peaking, and I was actually really excited about it because, man, you know, you see it right there, it would totally help in manual focusing, right? But because it's not completely always reliable, I actually stopped using it, and what I use more of is the focus assist, where it's a full-on zoom, and I get up close and I'll know precisely what's in focus, and that's more accurate for me. Let's go on to number 8. Formatting memory cards. Okay, so generally in a camera, there's like on a DSLR like the Nikon's, you press 2 buttons and hold it for 2-3 seconds. It'll format the card. Cool, nice shortcut for it. But on the Sony, you gotta dig through the menus. You gotta jump through the menus just to format the card, you know, so there's no quick shortcut to format it. And why do we even want to format anyways? You should get in the habit of formatting your memory cards before you use them, because it cleans the file system, it resets the file system, and it eliminates the chances for file corruptions. Obviously, make sure you have your backups first, because once you format, then you're going to lose those images. So keep your backups and format your memory cards right before you start shooting them. But going back to the formatting, one thing is it doesn't have that shortcut, right? Another thing is with videos, when you take videos with this, it doesn't have like that file name like DSE0029, you know, it doesn't have that. It just starts off with like 0001 dot, you know, MP4 or dot MTS, which is Sony's format. Now, what's the problem with that? But let's say I take 5 videos on this memory card, and the memory card's full. That's 001, right? Same day to 005. If I put in the new card and I format that card and I take 5 more videos, it's not going to go from 006 to 0010 or 11. No, it's going to go back to 001. So that means 2 files will have the same file name. And if you don't have a good cataloging system, that's going to lead to a lot of confusion, especially if this is all taken on one date. Let's say even you separate your photos and your videos by date. If it's on another day, no big issue, right? But you can easily go through multiple memory cards in one day. And if you're formatting with each new card, you're going to have a lot of files with duplicate file names. Fortunately, Lightroom will automatically create a, you know, 001-2, the second copy of the files. But if you didn't have anything like that and you're just straight up just dragging the files over to your computer, then you're gonna run into those issues. So I don't know why Sony did that. I mean, all it would take is a firmware fix, but you don't know. If it's not in there, it's not in there. Until it gets in there, it's the way it is, right? So I don't bank on firmware fixes. I just judge things by what they are right now. So that thing is very peculiar, and I don't know why Sony does that. Well, let's talk about number 9 is no battery charger. That's right. There isn't a separate. You can't just take out the battery and put it into the charger and plug it into the wall. That's not the way these cameras, or at least these Sonys, charge. Sony's treating it like a cell phone. Think of it as a cell phone where if you wanted to charge the battery, you plug it in, straight the USB cable into the adapter into the outlet. And I never like doing that because if you get like an electricity spike or a surge, that's gonna fry your camera. That's why I never want to plug my cameras directly into an outlet, because if it's something like that happens, you're screwed. I'd rather just take out the battery, put on a charger, not worry about it. But not only that, if you only have one battery, you can't use your camera, because when the camera's charging, you can't use it. It won't let you do it. So that's another con of having to plug it in just to charge. So I mean, $1,700 you spent on this camera. They should have just given you a charge adapter. I mean, so we bought this charger, and it charges 2 at a time. It's got an LCD panel and everything. When you're on a trip, you don't have time to wait for 4 batteries to charge on that. Just 1 at a time, right? So I want to be able to use my camera still while the other batteries are charging. So let's talk about the Steadyshot. It's great that the camera has it, but it's not this miracle worker that I first thought it was, or other people are thinking. It helps for stills. I think it helps for stills, long telephoto lenses. But when I'm thinking Steadyshot and stabilizer, I was thinking, hey, maybe it'll make our videos when we're walking around, smoother. But it doesn't do that. I mean, and I'll try to run some footage so that you can see the difference with and without it. It's not going to be smooth flowing Steadicam. It's not going to fly through like a glide cam. It doesn't work like that. At first I was like, hey, that would be nice, because then we wouldn't need anything else. But you're still going to get your choppy footage as you're walking with this. So it's not a miracle worker. That's all I'm trying to say. Alright guys, so this was a little long-winded, I know, but I just want to lay all the things out there, especially from the point of view of coming from a DSLR system to a mirrorless system, what I expected and what I got. So because you can easily watch all these reviews and they just praise it. It's like the latest and greatest. You can't do anything wrong. But there's the caveats that I listed it out, for me at least. Okay, let's put this in summary again. Let's wrap this up. The pros: the size of this thing is great. Great sensor. And the video features, I think the size, the sensor, and the video features, the smooth transitions, those are probably the best things that I like about this camera for me, because remember, I want this camera to be my travel camera. Now the cons: the battery life sucks. The lenses the fast lenses, the good lenses are way too big. I mean, as big as, regular DSLR lenses, so they need to find a way to make it smaller to keep this a compact system. And then the LCD screen, there's a lot of glare. It could be a better screen. And the interface for this system is it's kind of stuck between consumer and prosumer. It kind of meshed the two together. So they still need to work out some kinks and iron it out, make it a lot more intuitive and a lot more smoother, so that you can just use it and be free flowing and just be an intuitive shooter. I think as it stands right now, what this camera is good for, if you have the time, if it's a casual camera, if you have the time to pose out, your subjects, but if you need to capture things on the fly and you need that quick responsiveness, It's not quite there yet, and honestly, I think it's going to take Sony or um, some other manufacturer, probably 2 more generations of camera bodies to get to that point where we're going to get to that, whoa, I can completely replace my DSLR with this system. Right now, as it stands, personally, I don't think I can switch from my DSLR to this just yet for, uh, serious work. So hopefully this helps some of you, that are, just on the fence between should I, completely ditch my system and just bank everything on the new mirrorless system, because all the reviews are great. Hopefully this helps some of you, better weigh the pros and the cons of this camera. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you guys like this video, and Kay and I will try to put up more videos since we have this casual camera now. One video that we're excited to put up is a BTS of a wedding shoot. So we're filming here and there to give you an idea of how we prepare for a wedding, what goes on during the wedding. I mean, it's not going to be a full-on wedding tutorial, but at least gives you a little insight, even if it's just a little bit, okay? So look for that coming soon. And thanks for watching, guys. Hope you guys like this. Alright, guys.
Can I blow my nose first?
Okay, go ahead.